Hello, my name is Eddie de la Fuente, and this is my design concept for the new Rainforest Art Center in Forks, Washington. So both its physical stature and the emotional connection it had with those who used and enjoyed the building gave the late Oddfellows Hall a great presence on the face of Forks. This concept for a new Rainforest Art Center began with a proportional analysis of its predecessor and aims to mimic those proportions within a more constrained envelope due to things such as new height limits for construction, as well as the proportions of the building itself. Another element that I felt contributed greatly to that stature of the original building was its parapet, and so also bringing that forward through the screen element that wraps around the building and then supports these movable sections on the front facade that, when opened, become the building's new parapet. And then because of these height limits, these new height limits, the height of the building is stunted a little bit from the original. So it became important to kind of accentuate that front facade in order to fit those proportions in a little bit better. And in order to do that, I pushed a section of the building back there on the right hand side of it, as you see in the right two diagrams. So that section of the building is actually pushed back a little over halfway, as well as there being kind of closer up to the front a short or a low threshold that actually begins the entry sequence into the art center itself behind the commercial spaces up front. And so because that main entry is pushed back kind of off of the street and out of direct sight of the public, it became important to signal to it, to demarcate it in some way that it doesn't become lost and forgotten behind the commercial aspect of the building. And so I set up this series of red signals that leads you through the main spaces of the building, at least the main public spaces of the building. And so first, it starts with this red door and awning that projects out over starts to project into the sidewalk, into that public realm, and then brings you through that threshold in between the building and the screen, but you are still outside, but protected, by that screen and by that awning. And as you move back towards the main entry, you start to see the second signal, which is this red stair. And the awning itself, as you move back towards it, begins to compress down upon you. And then just before you reach the main entry, it releases, allowing you a full view of the stair as well as the second story reception area, where you might see fellow community members already warm and dry inside enjoying themselves. But before you can move up the stair yourself, there's a kink in that journey which brings you into the building through that main entry into the small lobby space, where then you yourself can take off your own coats and then move up that stair to that reception area. And then once at the top of the stair, just behind you is the final marker, which is a second red door, which then leads into the main event space, or the big, warm, beautiful box as we've come to know it. So here is a more detailed look at kind of the programmatic arrangement of the building. Up front here you have those commercial spaces with their own storage and access to the more service-oriented spaces of the building, namely restrooms, and then back here this kind of back entry, or this service or delivery entry, leading to this semi-covered kind of loading area or delivery area. And then again, that also functions to serve the performers or any event that's happening, for allowing catering and sets or materials or things like that to come in here up this elevator and upstairs. But in terms of the public access, as you're coming down the sidewalk from either north or south, you see this large red door and this awning over it coming out to almost intercept you as you move along the sidewalk. And then once you cross through that threshold, you're in between this screen and the building, but still outside, as I said, and coming down this almost kind of outdoor patio space through the main entry. And you see that red stair, and then just beyond the red stair too, though, is the secondary space, which could serve as community meeting area or a classroom or some kind of small event for children, or even an exhibition or gallery space that supports either it stands on its own, is a gallery of local artists, or supports some event, larger event that's going on upstairs. So then once you are ready to make your way up, there is that red stair as well as that elevator. And then, so say you're coming up the stair, once you do reach that second floor, out into this reception area here, so you can see in this perspective, just behind you is both a view back down to that first signal, so you can see where you've come from out on the street, as well as the last signal, which relates directly to it by being another large red door into the main event space itself. And so then as well in this area here, you are connected to this kitchen space back here and this kind of transition space between the two, which could be set up for some small dinner event. But the kitchen is meant to kind of be very flexible, as well as this space is meant to be very flexible, and that the kitchen can serve this area directly, or perhaps this could be closed off somehow for a more formal event. And then the kitchen can serve this larger space without ever really interfering with that public realm through this passage that brings you through this kind of prep room, or during a performance it can be used as a dressing room. And so you get this service spine back here that is also accessible through the secondary staircase, which in the event of an emergency is also the fire stair, the fire exit, or a secondary exit. And so you have this theatrical procession of these red elements bringing you through these kind of main event spaces of the building that is then braced by these service areas and things like emergency exits and such. So here again in this section perspective, you see kind of the main entry to the art center itself, where you then come into this lobby and around up this stair, this reception area, and then finally across into the main event space, or that big, warm, beautiful box. And you can see other elements as well, such as the commercial space down here below. You see that the commercial space itself actually has its own kind of vestibule, so that during the day, during normal operation, they have their own kind of signal calling out to them, so you would come in through this little vestibule out of the rain and into the commercial spaces themselves. And then as well back here, you have that kind of covered delivery area that brings you into the building for more service-oriented things. And also you can see here kind of difference in the structure. So in these kind of circulation areas, or these slip spaces here, the structure is actually covered up, and the space, at least on the second story, is quite a bit lower to kind of push you out into these kind of more activity spaces here. So this is not meant to really be a gathering space, but meant to be something that shoots you from one space to another. So from that reception area, for instance upstairs, from that reception area into the big, warm, beautiful box, and again at the end of the day back out into that reception area and down and out of the building. And here is a view inside of the main events space itself, just showing kind of a difference in activity. Here's a dance party. This gentleman looks like he's ready for 70s night, and just that exposed structure, that these secondary elements start to contain kind of the more technical side of the space. So things like acoustic panels behind which could be hidden the kind of more mechanical necessities of the building, such as vents and electrical systems, as well as having gaps in them where tracks could be run for theatrical lighting to support performances and concerts or things of that nature. And then finally, just the building as a whole, kind of the composition of it with the screen elements, those sliding panels, that storefront for the commercial area, and then the beginning of that public procession through the building. So here's that red awning, the door, and that second signal of the stair, bringing you upstairs and finally into that main event space. Thank you.